You already know what it is. 237, no place like home. Catch me on the stoop. And today, cause Bushwick in the house, baby. Bushwick in the house, baby.
Across the tracks.
Across the tracks. That's how we giving it up. Yeah. But I tell you what, let her introduce herself today. That's how we gonna do it.
My name is Jazz. My friends call me Jixie. I'm a sneaker collector, historian, archivist. I'm your favorite sneaker collector's favorite sneaker collector.
There you go. There you go.
Bushwick, Brooklyn, every day. Big Brooklyn energy. And I am excited to be here on the fucking stoop.
There you go.
I'm talking about, it's like the elevation of the stoop experience. So I'm excited to be here. So thank y'all for having me here.
Thank you for coming, baby. Salute.
It's early. We getting it in.
I got Bushwick now. Now, how do you say? Is it Graham or Graham? Yeah. See, this is how you get her, Kurt. This is how you get her. Look. You see how she had to hold on now, because he taking it somewhere.
No wrong answers.
Yeah.
No wrong answers.
It's Graham.
There you go.
Graham.
One time for the hood.
Because in Spanish it's Graham. So in English we just say Graham.
Okay.
So it's Graham.
Yeah.
I had to ask.
But it's not like graham cracker. Well, we not on that type of time. Graham.
Okay. I had to ask.
Graham.
I had to
That's
ask.
where you go. That's hysterical.
Because
That's the best question ever.
No doubt.
that's a
that's a hood thing. That's a Bushwick thing. If you from Brooklyn, you know how that go on that side of town. So.
Running around. Because Bushwick got some of the dopest shopping areas.
I thought I'm about to
say
but I'm talking about from us growing up. You went to Graham, you went to Wyckoff, you went to Knickerbocker to shop. You did a lot of shopping.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy? I went to Knickerbocker the other day, and there's a store, JD Sports.
No doubt.
Right? Before JD, that was VIM.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right? And then before VIM, there was another store there. There was a sneaker store. So literally that plot of land been a sneaker store for like 70 years. Which is crazy. I was sitting there thinking about that because I be thinking mad profoundly about sneakers. I be like, what? This has been 70 years of selling sneakers from this damn spot right here. But we had a few spots with Kicks in Knickerbocker in the 90s, and then Graham too. If you couldn't find it in Knickerbocker, you go to Graham, and then you go back to Knickerbocker, and then you go downtown Brooklyn.
Yeah. Of course.
You go to Fulton Street. That was really where you went over there and cop shit. But Graham, they had 2 reseller stores over there. They had Mac Magic, and they had
no doubt Mac Magic was on the corner right there over there. Yeah. Across from the hospital.
And across the street from Tom D's.
Yeah.
Not Quick Strike. I'm thinking of downtown, but there was another store. I'm blanking on the name.
On the McDonald's side.
Yeah. So they had those 2 stores, and they used to beat everybody on the head. It was like $400 Air Max. And we talking about 90s reselling. They were like the first.
Yeah.
Now is Tom D's on the Bushwick side? Or it's on the Bedford-Stuyvesant side. How you break down Bushwick? Where your Bushwick stop? Is it Broadway? Is it Bushwick? Is it one side of Broadway? Is the other side of Broadway? What is it for you?
You know what it is? Bushwick is pretty big, and it's like I stood on the Knickerbocker side my whole life. Graham was a whole nother type area of Bushwick. So we actually had beef back in the day with those girls. So the Knickerbocker girls had beef for like the Broadway chicks over there. So I don't even know if I consider that's East Williamsburg for real. And they can have that title. They can have that title. But Bushwick is like Knickerbocker is like Flushing, right? From Flushing to you hit Myrtle Ave, right? So that's real Bushwick. That's like the heart of Bushwick. And then the outskirts of it was like back then it was like the commercial area, was all the factories. In between when you get to the Graham side, which was like all those streets like Cook and Siegel and all those streets. So it's like we had a space, so we really didn't get along. And you know what's crazy? That's how ignorant we was back then. We didn't even get along with in our own town. People across the school. We were like, across the school, man, we all rocking the same shit and talking alike and acting alike.
Look, since we on Bushwick real fast, for those that don't know, talk a little bit about the light side and the dark side.
We just got into that. So historically, right, you had a lot of Cubans and Puerto Ricans that settled. Their Plymouth Rock was like Knickerbocker, right, that area. Irving, Wyckoff, and then over Wyckoff, St. Nicholas, you had a lot of Italians, Polish, and different Europeans. So now you come down Wilson, Central, Evergreen. Once you touch the other side of those train tracks, you in the dark side of Bushwick. So that's where the projects was at. That's where a lot of you had African Americans, you had West Indians, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like in Brooklyn, I think what's different about us from like other cities like Chicago, LA, is that we grew up one on top of each other, right? We weren't segregated by like whole towns, right? So it's like we in a 5-block radius trying to segregate ourselves and shit. So the light side and the dark side was like, here's all the Puerto Ricans, here's all the blacks, and then to be a Puerto Rican on the dark side in the 90s, you know, rocking polo, rocking your fresh kicks, mad jewels.
Taking that risk.
You had to know people. You had to be about that life. And gang life wasn't like, it had a few gangs, but it wasn't what made you at that time. It was like who you were made you, who you messed with, you know, how your bag spoke. So at that time, you know, I used to cop a lot of clothes from the boosters. So it was a lot of boosters on the dark side. So a lot of people don't acknowledge, like, when it comes up to that polo lifestyle. Bushwick was all rocking it. Everybody was dripping. Brownsville, a lot of boosters came from Best
Play
Side.
games by that L train if you want.
Side. Right.
Play games by that L train on Wilson if you want. See what happens.
Oh my God, that was crazy. And then take it further to Broadway Junction, Kelly Park. Oh, it was late 90s. Was wild. So you had to be a certain breed in order to roll with the peoples. But I went to junior high school. I went to Philippa Schuyler Middle School.
I did too.
So you went to Schuyler? All right, Schuyler. You know, that's the Howard of Brooklyn. They say that's the Howard over here. So,
Say, you always like to throw out the Schuyler.
I didn't even say that. All I said was I went there.
You got two of us now. Yo, I'm a proud Schuylerite. And it was crazy because, yo, you had all but 10 Puerto Ricans in that school. That was it. That was the most. From 5th grade to 8th grade, all you had was 10 Puerto Ricans. And what you had in that school was, you know, we all wore uniforms, but everybody's footwear game was impeccable. And these are people, you know, they're coming from Flatbush, deep into Queens, Rosedale, Laurelton. Then you have people coming from Bed-Stuy, Bushwick. So we all over the place, all over Brooklyn, all over Queens and Long Island. And then all we had was footwork and a lot of West Indians. So we a whole West Indian school. We being taught to own our brownness, and we being taught to be proud of that. You know what's that to be instilled you at such a young age, but with excellence. Because here we are, we're academics, we gifted, we singing, we dancing at the highest degree. I'm at Alvin Ailey. You know, so it's like it was an experience. We sang the African national anthem every day. We didn't sing the Star Spangled Banner. We wasn't over here Pledge of Allegiance. We was over here singing Kosisi Keleli Africa. Like we was getting it in every day. So that was such an experience. So me being a Puerto Rican who was already into sneakers, who was already into hip hop, because that was my household. My parents was about that life. So being that I grew up like that, now I go into the school and now I'm being instilled and I'm being fed, you know, how to move and how to be proud. And it was crazy because, you know, at the same time, I'm also learning my lessons, like being a loud Puerto Rican up in everybody's face, you know. Your brakes get pumped fast. You know, so I literally had to fight my way through junior high school. Like, and it was not only me. All the Puerto Rican girls I went to school with, yo, we was throwing up hands because, you know, people wasn't taking no shit. Right? People wasn't taking no shit, and everybody was out for respect, and everybody was, at those times, it was so different than where we are today. But those were the growing pains, and it was, being fly came with its cost, and that's what it was. You wanted to walk around super swaggy, that's what it is. So being that now I had expanded friends, you know, so I have friends all over the city at a very young age. So now we come into the dark side, and you know, the clothes is here in the dark side. The weed was there in the dark side. You know, every rapper in
like she on Cooper.
every rapper talks about the red door. If you don't
No doubt, no doubt.
you gotta know
No
about
doubt.
Hancock, you know, so you gotta know where the chocolate was, and you had to know where everything was at. But if you wasn't invited, you couldn't step over. It wasn't a free area for that. And the same thing vice versa, right? Because you have some blocks on the light side that was like, there was too many dudes grouped up, right? So you had like Saddam, you had DeKalb, you had Stanhope. There was too many of them. So you go over there, you try to take their shorties, they not feeling it.
Yeah.
But like,
we've been there.
but like, I used to be on Saddam, and I remember I used to see, because they used to sell mad hella drugs on that block. I used to see Prodigy, I used to see Method Man and Wu-Tang coming through the block, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm just sitting there and just being a young girl and loving hip-hop at that time. Being able to absorb that and being able to now say like, yo, I met Prodigy on the block. You know what I'm saying? We had a whole conversation. But just being able to know that, you know, they was coming to Bushwick for the drip, the culture. And guess what? Now look at what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's gentrified, but it's at the top of being art center of the world.
The
world. Because people in England coming out here to try and make it as artists. And you know, you had Basquiat, you had Warhol hiding out in Bushwick in the 70s. Because my father told me those stories. They used to have like the lofts over there.
Yes.
They used to want to be, they were dope heads, and they used to want to be close to the dope. So they used to be in those lofts up there drawing and doing their thing, and used to have a lot of dope dealers just going and dropping shit off from up the block. And they used to be close to it. So they used to have Madonna and all these people in them lofts over there.
Bushwick is definitely a entire vibe. Like, it's an entire vibe. Now, we got to talk sneakers.
We got to talk sneakers.
Well, first, for all of those that may not know, Air Max Day is coming up.
Air
Max Day is coming up. All you sneaker heads.
Big bubble.
Big bubble?
Big bubble energy.
Air
Max Day is amazing because it's the one holiday that makes us a culture. And this is a conversation, may rest in peace, Clark Kent. Clark did not like to call the sneaker community a community. A culture. He didn't like the word culture. He didn't like to define us as a culture. So I'm like, all right, but let's get real academic with it, because what defines a culture is having your own language, which we do, because if you talk to somebody and you tell them, yo, that shit is VVNDS, so that's DS. Sneakerhead's gonna know what you're saying, right? It's very near dead stock or it's dead stock, right? So you have your own, we have our own language, and even in Spanish, you know, some people be like, oh, ese grasa, you know, that's the oil, that's the heat. You know, so it's like we develop our own language. Sneakerheads speak to sneakerheads. So that's one element. Then we have folklore and legacy we pass down to generations, even though this generation don't want to hear it. Fine. I won't get into my Joe Biden energy right now. But they don't want to hear it, and that's okay. But that's what also defines us and makes us a culture. And then you have our holidays. So one of our major holidays and our only holiday is Air Max Day. It's the celebration of, creation, release of our beloved Air Max for 100 million years already. So here I give these definitions to Clark. Clark goes, you got a cute little point. It's one. He goes, it's so minute though. It's just a little point. He goes, and you'll be the only one I give that little tiny point to. He was like, it's still community versus culture, because he remains that it's a subculture. It's part of hip hop culture.
Yeah.
So he remains that it's part of that, and I'm like, yeah. It's its own right now. He was like, you get this little tiny point, but I got
all of that. It's all of that all at one, though. It's all of that rolled up in one.
Yeah, I mean, hip hop is. I wrote an article where I called hip hop the cousin of sneaker culture that you slept in the same pissy mattress in the bed with, right? So it's like you grew up side to side with hip hop, but you're both two different people in two different lanes, right? So I think hip hop amplified it, gave it light, because it was a full lifestyle. But there was other musical genres. They're also, you know, rock sneakers, and they wore different sneakers. And people want to fight with me about that too, because I give certain other genres of music credit for some sneakers.
No doubt.
Right?
I'm with you on that.
So,
you look at some rockers, you look at some of these rock dudes, they wore a lot of high top joints, a lot of Nike joints, a lot of Nike Air Forces.
Even the skateboard
skaters, you know, skate culture that's like it goes in line like with alternative rock culture, right? And then you have Converse, and where Converse lives in that world, right? But then you have where Converse lives for the West Coast. But then West Coast is where you got the skaters at. And skate culture was not only white over there, right? It was Chicano, it was black, it was white, it was a melting pot, you know, for skate culture over there. But then you come
brought them together.
Yeah.
But then you come to New York, and skate culture at one point, skate culture was only white kids in the Village, or you know, or certain parts of, you know, Park Slope. So it's just like, it was very regional, but sneaker had its place in everybody's timeline. It's just us poor people from the hood is really, we didn't have nothing. We didn't have houses and cars, and we didn't have nothing for us to be like, yo, this is what we got. You know, we dope now. We have how we looked. How we look is what made the statement, and sneakers was a vibe. It was what differentiated us from each other. Or that's how it started. Now everybody want to look alike. That's a whole other topic. But Air Max, like we were talking about, was, you know, it's a big thing, I think, for us in Brooklyn. You know, in the late 90s, we were all, everybody, when the Air Max 95 wave hit, and that's why, like, you got artists like Fab, you got that mention, like, that whole, during that time, he's rhyming, he mentions that whole Air Max lifestyle. We were really big on the 95s and the 97s, and that's when my love for that sneaker just took off. I wasn't a ones or 90s.
I'm not a 90s guy.
I wasn't ones or 90s, but I give a lot of respect to these women who have these massive 90s collections and these one collections that are just like impeccable. And a lot
dressed with it.
They gotta get dressed with them.
And when they died here, right? When those Air Max died here in the United States, Europe kept that shit going. So Europe kept it going, and you have like the Netherlands. They get crazy over there. Japan, Japan had a lot of exclusive rights to and exclusive drops on Air Max in early 2000s. So I used to stay trying to cop Air Max from over there, and I have some pieces that only came out over there. So they were, at the time, they're known as Asian exclusives. So they only had them over there, and here nobody was really rocking them. We moved. We already went to different brands, and we were already exploring different types of sneakers. But they died here for a little while, and then, of course, now with the resurgence of everything OG, because like we're in the archival period where everybody's enamored by. And it's crazy how old some of these things are. And I say it, and I'm like, no, it's not. I can't be that old. I'm like, no, it's not.
I know one thing. She got on a good Pele.
Yeah, she do.
Just for all of those that don't know, because
that's Harlem, bro.
That's Harlem. Everything Harlem.
Everything is Harlem.
We gonna talk about it. So this Pele is probably 20 years old. And I got a bunch of them that's 20 years old. I remember when I used to pay 500, 600, 700. 700 was top. I was like, damn, can we come down? But I used to go to 145th or 125th for my Pellies. So absolutely, it was definitely in Harlem. And certain styles, people want to argue, yo, this came from Brooklyn, this came from, you know, Uptown. Like, Uptowns are known as Uptowns. Why? Because the whole Uptown was wearing them. The whole Bronx and the whole Uptown was in Uptowns. That's what, if you want an exclusive Uptowns, you go Uptown to find Uptowns. I'm going to give them that. They could keep that. They could keep it. And if you really from Brooklyn, let's talk about it. Your bum fit was a clean pair of white Uptowns. That's what you wanted to look like when you was trying to be clean. You was trying to be clean, or you wanted to be fresh in the club, and you knew they were gonna mess up your sneakers, so you wore a pair of brand new. You pop them out the trunk, white Air Force Ones. So technically, that was not our drip. That was our calm.
That was good. Cause I like how she broke it down. She broke it down.
That was good night. That was a sleepy time. But people want to argue about who, what. Yeah, we wore it too, but it was calm for us. But that is a staple for them, and it's something that defines Uptown and gives them a regional sneaker that's theirs. Because you know what? When you go uptown into the Bronx, they're more populated than us. They got these giant buildings of 1,000 people times 12 on one block, times 100 blocks. Like, they're so populated in Upper Manhattan and the Bronx. So it's like, when you talk about growing up poor, they grew up, South Bronx, I mean, it's still one of the zip codes that's one of the poorest in the nation. So it's like, when you talk about those areas, you're talking about price point of sneakers, you're talking about being fresh. You know, that was something that was to lift their spirit and their soul, and to keep them looking fresh and keep their staple going. So shout out to them, because they kept that sneaker alive. The reason that sneaker is so strong now is because the authenticity that Uptown and the Bronx gave that sneaker. And now they want to call them, what is it, G-Nikes in the Midwest. They call them G-Nikes, and they got all kinds of names for them. And I'm like, you're talking about an Air Force One? And they're like, yeah, it's a G-Nike.
You a sneaker philosopher, man.
Did I not start off saying that I'm a historian?
You damn sure did. You damn sure did.
A lot of people, you're right, but a lot of people talk and say who they are, but you
they don't walk it, right?
Yeah, walk it. You teaching me some real lessons right now.
You know what? I grew up in this way too young. So, you know, I was asking my mom for sneakers at 6 years old. So at 6 years old, I'm like, yo, I want those sneakers, and it has a sun on it. And she was like, a sun? And I'm like, orange and yellow. And I was like, I want them in white. And my mother, she knew already. She was like, because my mom was into kicks, and my father was a DJ in the 70s. So in the 80s, when hip-hop came out, my father was in love with it, and my house was loud. You know, we boom, boom, boom. I'm the crib. And my father would be outside with the turntable and a coffin, a giant heavy coffin.
We get it in.
With the techniques and the speakers. And
oh, she went real out there with the techniques.
My mom had the whole, my living room had a backdrop. It was like from Scarface. It was a lake in my living room. I'm like, y'all two is wild. They were young and wild. So my mother came back and brought me the sneakers, but they were black. And then I seen the name, a lot of E's, Elise. And I'm like, we hella Puerto Rican, so we say Elise with the hard E's, even though it's Elise. So I'm like, Mom, but I wanted them in white. And she said, it's winter, baby. You don't wear white in the winter.
Talk that talk.
And that was my first sneaker lesson. And I'm like, we don't wear white in sneakers. Why? She was like, they're going to get filthy. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I had my Elises, and I went to school 6 years old, and I'm like killing it. And I'll never forget the girl who had them on. Her name was Sumari Nieves. I'll never forget. And I told my mom, yo, Sumari has on these Elises, and I need them. They had the logo looks like a sun.
Yes.
So I'm like, yo, I wanted those sneakers. So I'm like, she had them on, and I need them. That was the first time. Then from there, it was a wrap. And then it was all my Reebok from there, and the 5411 just became the sneaker for me that was like, damn, I need all of them.
Gotta catch
so in my head, I saw boxes of sneakers, because I was like, yo, my mother was like, what color you want? And I'm just looking at her, and I'm like, all of them. And she's just like, oh, that's where we at. So shout out to moms, because she was always one that was like, she copped kicks, and she wasn't feeling them. And then she would be like, I'm going to put them away. And when she gets older, she could take them. Not because she was trying to start a collection, but because she was cheap. And she was like, yo, if I take care of these, then she'll have them in a few years. She was always thinking about a growing foot.
Well, that's what happened when when you broke. You know what I'm saying? You actually preserved your kicks. So what happens is, now you realize, yo, I still got those kicks from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And for me, like, I started, you know, I grew up, I started off, my parents were dead fucking broke when they got together. They were teenagers. And then, you know, at a certain point, our life changed. My father started making money. And when my father started making money, you know, then it was just like, I always was a great student. I always was a straight A student, and my shit was sneakers. You want an A on that test? I need these sneakers. So even today, I got videos of my father. He's like, yo, I thank God I don't gotta buy you sneakers no more.